Greetings, Zimbabwe, Africa, and the world. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, where I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today, I'm in conversation with Lazarus Muchenje, the Chief Executive of NetOne. Lazarus Muchenje, welcome to In Conversation
Hi, Trevor.
with Trevor.
Sure, thank you so much.
You have been at the helm of NetOne for just over a year now.
Correct.
What has been the experience?
Well, Trevor, it's been quite exhilarating. It's been a great experience.
Right.
It's good to be back home.
Right.
And, it's good to be heading one of the key industry players in Zimbabwe. Trevor, for me, leading NetOne is a privilege, right? It's not a right, it's a privilege. It gives me an opportunity to shape the telecommunications sector in Zimbabwe, and with that also shape the lives of many youngsters who, for them, the future is all about telecoms and ICT. So creating that future for them, together with them, that's quite exciting.
You came in from outside, from the diaspora.
That's right.
With a very interesting career in the diaspora. Do you mind sharing your journey outside the country before you came in?
Well, sure. It's interesting. I'm seen as a telecoms guy today, but when I left the country, I was just an accountant, and I went to join the most, primary industry, if you can think. I was with the company selling caterpillars. That's actually how I left Zimbabwe. So I started in the primary sector, but subsequent to that, I then joined a small little company, which was called Vodacom. Which was starting off then in South Africa, and that was quite an exciting journey. We built that company from a small little company to a $1 billion company today. I subsequently left after having been in Vodacom International, Vodacom South Africa, worked in the DRC and on the continent in general. I then left and I went into banking with what is today probably the biggest bank by market share and by market cap, with the First Rand Bank, where I ran their mobile payments platform company that was operating on the African continent. Very interesting, that was actually the first company to do mobile payments in the world, having been formed in 1998. So that was quite an adventure for me. So I've been in telecommunications, I've been in banking. I then left. I actually purchased that company from First Rand with my management. So we did a management buyout. We ran it for a while. Had great success with the World Bank project in the Congo. We're the payments partner for the World Bank in the demobilization of basically the peace process in the Congo. So we did quite well. We sold that company. I moved on. I went into mobile advertising with some friends. We sold that business in 2017, and in the process of that sale, this NetOne opportunity came up, and I thought, well, maybe it's an opportune time for me to go back home and make a difference.
So you are an entrepreneur in a way.
Yes, I've been an entrepreneur for 10 years. I first purchased the company from First Rand in 2008.
And your journey has resulted in you receiving one of very interesting accolade, being recognized for what you've done in the promotion of electronic transactions across the continent. Tell me about that, and what had you done for you to be able to receive that award?
Yeah, Trevor, that came about during my stint running CellPay. Like I said, we actually bid against major European and American companies to become the World Bank's payments partner in the DRC. The task was enormous. DRC is bigger than the whole of Western Europe put together,
right,
without the infrastructure. And we had to pay demobilized soldiers for 2 years in the place where they were demobilized to, using mobile payments, at a time when there were no mobile payments except our system in the world. So we managed to get it right. We paid out over $100 million over 2 years, quite successfully. And I think over and above that, in the Zambian context, in 2009 or 10, we're moving over 20% of their GDP over our mobile payments platform. So at that time, mobile payments were just starting. Regulators didn't have any rules for us. We
Right.
Regulators were actually giving us a certificate of non-objection. So you can start. We don't know what you're going to do, but we don't object. And we'll regulate you as we understand what you're doing.
And the situation has changed now.
The situation has changed dramatically. We now have big payments platforms here in Zimbabwe, in Kenya, Uganda, and something starting off in Tanzania. Well, no, Tanzania is big. Something starting off in Nigeria. So the situation has changed. In China, we know that most of the payments are now electronic and over the phone. But we were pioneers in a way. Well, not in a way, but in many ways. We're pioneers in this space, both in terms of just doing it.
Yeah, and you're bringing that experience to NetOne.
Correct.
Clearly, that's a key skill that you're bringing in, and you're going to be driving that process. Tell us about your vision to where you want to take the mobile payments as far as NetOne is concerned.
Look, at this stage, we're a distant second in a market dominated by one player. Our vision is within the next 12 months to take significant market share. I'm not allowed to say how much. Significant market share, and to be leading within the next 2 years. So that's really our view. And the reason is quite simple for us. We choose not to compete with the competition. I mean, there are a few players here in this market. We choose to compete with ourselves and to try and be world class. Because we don't believe that at this stage where there's anyone who's world class in this market as far as mobile payments are concerned. And I say that with a lot of respect. Also with a lot of knowledge, given that I was in this space way before the guys that are doing it here are. So I think that if we can be world class as NetOne, we will be number one. And that's going to take us 24 months to put that ecosystem in place and the people and the infrastructure in place.
But that's interesting. You say with a lot of respect that you want to be world class, and there's no world class right now.
That's right.
What does world class look like within the mobile money payment system?
You know, world class is when you give your clients a seamless service at an affordable price, and a service that allows them to do more than just one thing. So if you look at it, in this country, it's currently quite constrained what you can actually do with your payments. The proliferation of the products and services that one can use here is still not there. It's really just P2P. That's the primary. 90% of that's P2P and buying airtime. That's really what most people are doing.
You have seen interesting growth since you started. I mean, a 64% growth in revenues as far as One Money is concerned, and volume growth of 773%, thus starting from a low base.
Yes.
That says there's something right you're doing. What is it that they're doing that is catching the attention of the market?
You know, Trevor, the thing is that we said we want to be world class. That's the first thing. Then we said, how do we become world class? We've got to have a roadmap.
Right.
So we defined that roadmap, which we now call the back to basic strategy. Mm-hmm. It basically says you must do things correct the first time. Okay? That's what we're doing now. So if we look at mobile money, how that impacts mobile money, our network has got to be working all the time. So you can't, when you're trying to make a payment, then have no signal, or the payment gets cut off halfway through. So we got to have a quality network. We've worked very hard on that. You know, our network is improved dramatically. It's arguably the best network in Zimbabwe, standing at 99% availability. In an independent survey done by the regulator, it was found that the market actually believes NetOne is the best network in the country today. So that goes to...
That's a Potra's research. Yeah.
Research. They actually contracted an independent company to do that research. And it showed that people are starting to understand that NetOne is the best network. So if you take the best network and then you overlay our mobile payments on that, so it's always working when you want it to work, clearly you start to see some growth because we're solving a problem that our consumers have. And that is the problem of a reliable service.
Talk to us about, you've already hinted, your back to basic strategy. What constitutes the strategy and what have you been able to achieve this far?
Well, it's really simple, and it's interesting because I saw an economist saying that Zimbabwe must go back to basics as a country, and we said, yeah, Zimbabwe is now adopting our strategy, but we had a good laugh about it. But our back to basics strategy really comprises of 4 pillars.
Right.
The primary pillar in telecommunications is your network. You have to have a world-class network that is up all the time, hence our 99%. So we've worked hard to ensure that we have fuel, we have electricity. In other words, where there's no electricity, we must get transmitters. We work with ZESA, we put transmitters in place so we can get electricity there. So our network is sorted, pillar number 1. Pillar number 2 is quality distribution. Once you have the network up, you must monetize it. So you've got to have a distribution that works. And to that extent, we only had 35 shops that we owned, and we're trying to sell through that. In the past year, we've grown that to over 1,000 shops that we control. We don't own them, but we control them. And that makes a huge difference in terms of how we can reach our customers. So we now have a ubiquitous distribution channel. You can find our products all over the country. The third, so now you've now bought your SIM card, you've bought your airtime, you're calling on a great network, you have a problem. You must have a quality contact center and quality services. So that's our pillar number 3. Our contact center is magnificent. It's probably the only one you can call in the country and you'll answer the first time within 20 seconds you answered. Within 3 minutes your issues are resolved. So if you have a problem, you call. There's a friendly voice on the other side. They answer you, they resolve your problem. If they can't, they'll call you back. And we find that our clients really appreciate that because they don't get that anywhere else. That's our third pillar. So those are the 3 operational pillars.
Of back to basics.
Of back to basics. The fourth one is as a financial pillar. It's more a technical pillar in the sense that you need to have a quality balance sheet. You can't work when your balance sheet is not a quality one. Because, I always give the example that if your balance sheet is not a quality one, the CEO is always dealing with the banks who want their money, dealing with the creditors who want their money. So what is the CEO doing half the time? Managing creditors instead of managing the vision of the company and being productive. So we've worked very hard on creating a quality balance sheet. We've restructured a lot of our debt that we have on our balance sheet. We've negotiated with external creditors. You'd understand that some of our debts is also part of the national debt because we are a state-owned enterprise. So the things that we're doing in restructuring our balance sheet actually will go a long way in helping also the national balance sheet of Zimbabwe.
Let's talk about the impact of the current fuel crisis and the electricity crisis. It's commendable that you're moving fuel generators to base stations and so forth, but what's that doing to your bottom line?
Yes, it's Trevor, it's a difficult time for Zimbabwe. It's a difficult time for commerce and industry, and certainly for us as a telecoms player. You would understand that we probably apart from mines, maybe we use we are some of the highest users of fuel. So the impact on the bottom line is quite grave, in the sense that, number one, we don't have electricity. Electricity was quite cheap. Now we have to buy fuel, and because it's scarce, it's a bit higher than it was maybe a few months ago. So the impact has been quite huge. But on the upside, at NetOne at least, I don't know about the rest of the industry, we've been able to cut costs elsewhere. If you look at last year, what we did last year, we actually took $20 million worth of costs out of our network and marketing expenses. So we've got a very agile and lean cost base that we're working with, and that helps us to survive even these challenges we're facing now with high fuel prices and more fuel usage today on our network.
As far as attending to your balance sheet, you're looking at moving away from being technically challenged as far as the balance sheet is concerned to being profitable in the next 4 to 5 years. How feasible is that? Are you on track?
I think we're ahead of our schedule.
Fascinating.
Yes,
Tell us
yes.
about that.
So, I mean, this quarter will make more money than we've ever made in any year, is NetOne. And I think that the team has done fantastically well. When one talks about inflation, oh no, it's inflationary increases. Well, not really for us. As an industry, we've received 2 increases. One was 100%, one was 30-something%. And we've not, in that we've applied to only the headline tariffs that we have, which account for only 30% of our revenues. The bulk of our growth is coming because of the quality of our network, the success of back to basics. We actually have more customers today who are spending more per customer. So those are the ingredients that make a successful network. But why are the people spending more? You know, in a situation where one expects them to be spending less, you know, because disposable incomes are lower now maybe than they were a few months ago. The reality is that there's a wallet that people use for telecommunications. There's a bigger wallet they use for everything else. We've seen that for us, they are starting to reallocate some of the wallet they had elsewhere with our competitors to NetOne because of the quality data network especially.
So you're seeing a shift from competition to you.
Exactly.
How significant is that?
Very significant. Very significant.
Can you share with us the numbers?
I'll share with you some numbers. I can't
Right.
share all the numbers because
Okay.
they're not published yet.
Sure.
But let me give you an example. Just in the past 2 months alone, we've grown our subscriber base by 200,000. Now, our subscriber base when we started 2018 was only 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was growing at that rate, I would have grown to 2 million over 20 months, right? Which took us 20 years to achieve. So that's how much we've accelerated our rate of growth. Our spend per customer has gone up more than 5 times. Now you would understand when you look previously that the spend per customer on NetOne was lower than all the other networks. And the assumption was always that we are the rural network. So we've got all these people in the rural areas and they don't have money to spend, they're just receiving calls. But that's a myth, you know. We have people in urban areas. We have people in rural areas. What we've done as part of B2B on the...
Back to basics.
Back to basics.
That's B2B.
B2B is to start to reallocate and redeploy our network to suit where the demand is. So for example, with some base stations in parts of the country that were maybe 4G, but there were no 4G phones there. We're taking those and redeploying them to where there's demand for 4G services. So just that alone is improving our revenues. But also we are seeing high value customers coming to NetOne. So the question really is, if one is not on NetOne right now, then the experience you're getting is not the best experience in the country.
You're selling NetOne very well right now. Let's get to the numbers, which for me I found fascinating. You have moved from a loss position to a profit position in a very short space of time. You've grown your subscriber base by 25% from 2.6 million to 3.3 million. That is 2017, 19, 18. That's 2017 to 2018. You've grown your revenue base by 13%. You've grown your data subscribers by 5%. You've grown your data revenue. And the question that I have for you is, how have you done this?
You know, Trevor, the Zimbabwean people were yearning for an alternative to what was there. And we at NetOne, by providing quality service. Now, this is not only about the network now, it's also about how we conduct ourselves with our customers, how we conduct ourselves in the community. So we also defined ourselves last year as the caring network. So we're the network that identifies with the communities that we do business in. And when you do that, you start to find that people actually want to work with you. They want to be associated with you because you are the network that's not only taking money from them, but you're also investing in those same communities. But, you know, the primary reason for the growth really is the application of our people and the deployment of our capital and equipment in the right areas. So but my primary role is as the Chief Education Officer at NetOne is to optimally deploy the resources we have, whether they be people or capital or infrastructure. And we've done that quite well with the team over the past 12 months. So once you do that, and then you say, guys, let us be world class in everything we do. When we come to work, let us make sure that we are better today than we were yesterday. People stand up and notice.
As you're talking to me, I'm listening to you with total, fascination, and because we're talking about a parastatal, okay,
state-owned enterprise,
and state-owned enterprise, and state-owned enterprise, and in most instances, people associate state-owned enterprises and parastatals with all things negative. But I've just looked at your report. I'm listening to you right now, and I'm hearing a different story. And I'm saying, where is this coming from? And you're saying to me it's a combination of technology, it's people, the Chief Education Officer being yourself. What would you say has been the number one thing that has made you, in a very short space of time, to be able to achieve the kind of results that you've been able to achieve?
Culture change.
Culture change.
Culture change.
How sustainable is that?
We've sustained it now for 18 months, and it's getting a life of its own. People love to succeed. Nobody likes to fail. So at first you start off and you're preaching something that is foreign, but after a while people embrace it because they see their success, and they are succeeding, and they are being applauded, and they want to do more of the same that gets them the applause. So, and the other thing also that we've done, Trevor, is that we're getting champions of excellence, because you have to create centers of excellence which people can rally around in their own little communities, because there are many communities in the business. You have to create within each community a center of excellence with a champion of excellence that can create a continuous vibe and demand for excellence.
This is culture change in an organization that has 714 people. That's a huge achievement to have notched inside just 17 months.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Trevor. I'll take that as a compliment first.
Right.
But it becomes easy if you're very clear about what you want to do. Now, I think my team and I, and our board, we've always been quite clear about that we want to be world class, and that here's a roadmap. It's not a complicated story on a paper about your mission, and our roadmap is very clear. And when you're clear about what you want to do, then you can lead easily. But if you're not clear about exactly where you want to go and what you want to achieve, it's not easy to lead. You know, I often tell my exco that my executive team that our actions and our words are signals to the company. Because I can't come into contact with all the 700 people, but they can hear what I say and they see how I act. And these signals are very important. So every day we intend to send out positive signals about world class, about being the best, about changing our company and our country positively. And you know, and I also engage with the staff at least once every quarter. I go around the country and I have staff briefings where I encourage the staff and I share with them the journey that we've started, which is a great journey, and they love that. They love to see that, oh wow, we're succeeding. We've always been told we're not succeeding, we're not good enough. But is this,
you can't succeed.
You can't succeed. Is this really us? And you start to see the belief in the eyes. You can see the gaze. The way the people walk has changed.
Do you think if the proverbial bus ran over the Chief Education Officer, this culture change would sustain?
I think it will outlive me, yes.
That's
I think the NetOne community now understands what it is to be world-class winners. Like I said, you should see the spring in their step.
Good.
And I don't think that will be extinguished by one person not being there.
Lazarus, talk to us now about your vision to transform NetOne into a digital service company. What does that look like?
Yeah, well, I think being digital starts off by having a quality data network or world-class data network. We're now going towards 5G. 5G is going to be running on high-speed, highly reliable data, and we've started that investment now. We've got investment.
Can I hold you right there?
Sure.
NetOne is investing in 5G.
We're investing in 5G-ready infrastructure.
Okay.
5G works in an environment where it's not just the network, but your devices must also be ready. So we don't have devices that are ready yet. If you ask me, there may be 3 countries in the world that are ready for 5G today, and they're all in Asia. So that just tells you. But we must be 5G ready.
Okay.
Because it's not going to take 2-3 years to get there. So as we invest today, and we're investing $71 million over the next 2 years in infrastructure, that infrastructure is going to be 5G ready.
Okay.
So that's the basis, the foundation.
I interrupted you
Sure.
talking to us about your digital service company vision.
Yes, so that's the journey. The journey starts by putting in place the digital infrastructure that is fast and highly reliable, and that's 5G ready. The second part of it says, well, now you've got this pipeline. What are you going to do with it? So you've got to make decisions. What content are you going to put on there? Because people have to consume content. And today, you can make one of 2 choices. The first choice is, do you create content yourself, create a content company, or do you partner with content partners? And so I think in our journey, we're not going to compete with content partners. I think there are enough of them. We will actually partner with those and be able to provide ethical content for Zimbabweans to consume.
Well, what is this content going to be like? I mean, we're talking gaming,
Yes.
We're talking music,
Sports.
entertainment, sports.
Yes.
Any special focus, or you're just going to be offer the entire menu?
Look, we're already doing a lot in sports, so that content is really available for us. We are probably the biggest single sponsor of football.
We'll talk about sports later
Yeah.
on because that's a big thing.
Exactly.
Right.
So that content is easily available for us. But if one looks at what's actually people love to consume, which is ethical, of course, it's music and sports.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to focus on those 2 and drive those 2 initially.
The is it going to be co-creation of content, collaboration of content, buying in of content? Is it local content? Is it foreign content? Could you speak to us about that?
It's all of those.
It's all of those.
So we don't have a specific focus to say we're going to do only local content, because our consumer is highly discerning. A Zimbabwean consumer understands what they want, and they've been exposed to a whole lot of content already on other media, but they want to consume it with using the most available media, which is your phone, because you have it everywhere. So they need to have their football from overseas. Some will need to have their basketball. Some need to watch their series from all around the world. And there'll be a fair amount of local content too. We will play a big role in the generation of local content, because there's no investment in that currently, or maybe there's little investment in that regard. So we understand we'll have to play a big role in creating local content. And that's quite important, because the Zimbabwean people must also tell their own stories and have their own heroes. And it's incumbent upon us as a digital player of the future to start, to facilitate that journey.
We have, I think we might not realize this, but a very active creative industry, arts, and they've been looking for an outlet, searching for an outlet and collaboration. Is NetOne most likely to be receptive to these approaches from these young artists, these young performers, the creators of content? Are you looking at that?
Yes, Trevor, indeed we are. Look, we understand that we have a responsibility to play in the generation and the welfare, in the generation of the welfare of our communities. So we also understand that there's very little money going into facilitating content creation, providing platforms where once the content has been created, it can be consumed, and monetizing that so that the people that are creating the content can actually be able to make a living out of that. We intend to play a role in that, in creating that ecosystem. So, I mean, we will encourage all youngsters with content and with ideas. It doesn't have to be youngsters only, I guess it can be anyone who is in the field of arts, and to work with them in, to package their content and be able to sell it on to our consumers.
What advice would you give them in terms of them approaching you and what they should do so that they are ready to engage with NetOne in that regard?
You know, we don't need them to have business plans. We just need them to have the idea of what they want to do. If it's a play, write it out in a script so we can be able to look at it objectively and give you input. And they must be prepared to get no's as well. There will be some no's. It's not going to be yes for everybody. But whatever you want to do, write it down and bring it to us. Because we can only analyze it and see if we can work with it if it's written down.
Okay. Do you have creative hubs where young people can come in and play using NetOne data, bandwidth to be creative, and spaces for them to just to play around and see if they can be creative?
Trevor, not at this stage. We have been working with a lot of youngsters around creating spaces such as that, but not at our premises. We've been collaborating with innovation hubs around the country, at all the universities. At this stage, I'm actually quite happy to say that we are funding 75 youth who are training to be Google developers for Google Apps. And we're paying for that. We're giving them internet, we're giving them the data, etc. And we're paying for that for the actual certification program. In fact, that's the beginning or the core of our engagement in that regard. But as to creating spaces within NetOne, we're looking at that. We don't have that as yet.
Let's move on to you have been identified as a candidate for privatization. Is there progress in that regard? Of course, that will one assumes address your balance sheet issues.
Yes. So last year in April, I think it was, the government made a decision to partially privatize NetOne. We've gone a long way in that journey. At this stage, a transaction advisor has been appointed by the government. A technical committee has been set up to manage the process. And that technical committee is in the process now of finalizing how they will engage with the transaction advisor. And once that is finalized, then the process kicks off. The actual process of selection, of bidding and selection, etc., will then kick off.
Any timelines at all?
Oh no, the technical committee is driving that. That's not driven by management per se. Yes. Okay.
We hope it produces the kind of results that you're expecting and drives the kind of initiative, the innovation that you've started already. Let's move to something which is which you've already talked about, your involvement in sports. First of all, what informs that, and secondly, which sports are you involved in, and at what level?
Yes. So Trevor, our communities require some kind of entertainment, and they need to keep themselves occupied. The youth need to stay off, bad habits, drugs, etc. So they must engage in sports. Is one of the ways to get out of having idle time and then indulging in the wrong things. So that's the starting point of why we get engaged in sports. We are currently engaged in a quite a big way in football, where we are sponsoring two of the largest community teams in the country, in Harare, Capes United, in Bulawayo, Highlanders, and we're also sponsoring two armed forces teams, Chapungu from the Air Force and Black Rhinos from the Zimbabwe National Army. For us, so number one, we need to sponsor these teams because we get good publicity out of it. Okay, as NetOne, people are going to be watching them. They're wearing NetOne. These people are heroes to the youth of the country, and in many homes, they bring joy. I know families who, when their team doesn't win on Sunday, it's quite dismal in that house.
Absolutely.
So we want to be associated with the ups and downs, the emotional side of our community, and hopefully ensure that most of the time they're happier than they are sad.
So that's football.
That's on the football side, and so we're engaged at a very highest level there. We are also starting now to work on. We're talking to the rugby people. We've not finalized anything yet, but we're engaging. We are hoping to get involved a little bit on the polo side. So we've recently become engaged in boxing, where we are working. We've worked very closely with the Manucci stable, and there we are working with Manucci and the people that are fighting in his stable. And at this stage, we're very happy that the very first fight that Manucci did, he actually won an intercontinental belt, and now the next fight that he has, which is on Saturday the 28th in Harare, he's actually fighting now for a world title. So we're very happy as NetOne, because we see ourselves as world winners and world beaters, to associate with another world-class athlete. And we hope that he wins, and that he becomes a role model for many youngsters in Zimbabwe, and that these kids can walk away from the streets, go into boxing parlors, start to train, and earn the discipline that comes out of being part of a sport, and become better citizens overall.
There are risks of associating a brand with sports sometimes.
Yes.
There are downsides. Are you alive to those? And have you had any experiences that have made you rethink that strategy?
Yes, we are very alive to that. Being in football can be quite scary sometimes. So, and we've experienced some downs in the past 12 months with one of the teams in football. One must be able to create that space where you can be honest with the teams that you're sponsoring when things are going wrong, so that they don't tarnish your brand, and also they don't damage the good work that we are doing in the community. But it's a measured risk, it's a calculated risk that we are willing to take.
So Lazarus, you talked about seeing a shift from clients moving from other networks to your network. Mm-hmm. How easy is that to do? Is it cumbersome?
Trevor,
how does one do it?
It's very simple. First of all, if you're moving from another network, we can move you instantly. You just have to come with your ID and tell us your number that you have, and we'll do what we call number matching for you. What number matching is you keep your last 6 digits, so it's easy to remember. We just change your initial 3 or 4 digits, but the last 6 that you have remain exactly the same.
Okay, so I walk into your shop with my phone, and I walk out with a NetOne number ready to use. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, it's as easy as that. You walk in with your ID and your old telephone number from wherever you're coming from. We'll switch it for you and give you exactly the same number with the last 6 digits exactly the same. When you walk out, your number is working, and you can make calls on the best network in the country.
Are you seeing a movement from you to other networks at all?
No.
No.
We've seen a huge shift from the other networks to us.
That's interesting.
It's quite exciting times for us. Very exciting times. There's a huge vote of confidence in NetOne today.
And your network will be able to sustain this movement of clients to your network in terms of the technology and all the other supporting infrastructure.
Absolutely. We've invested over the past 5 years. We've invested over $300 million into a network. We're going to invest another $70 million now. So we are more than ready and capable to give people a world-class service and an exciting time on NetOne.
Interesting. Yes. Laz, what would you think has been the secret to your success? You as the Chief Education Officer.
Perseverance. And I know you can't always be the smartest guy in the room, but you can be the most hardworking guy in the room. Mm-hmm. I think that's been the secret.
What have been your exciting moments, and what have been your lows in this journey?
Well, the most exciting was in May 2018, a month after I joined NetOne, and we actually made a profit in that month. That was really exciting. It was different. I mean, this had never been done before. Yes, we were not turning everything around, but in just that 1 month, we managed to balance our books, and people started to say, well, maybe there's something to this world-class thing that this guy is talking about. That was exciting.
And looking at being successful in what you've done on the continent and doing great things at NetOne, have you ever failed at anything at all? I want you to be vulnerable here and inspire some people out there. Have you ever failed at anything?
Jeez, that's a difficult
Because you
one,
bought
Trevor.
businesses, you ran them, you
Yes.
sold them.
Yes.
You've run businesses on the continent, in the DRC, in
Yes.
South Africa, and everything else. Have you ever failed?
Yeah, I guess I think I failed a couple of times. I failed when I was still learning how to lead people. I have one big failure I recall where in my excitement with the growth of some youngster, I over-promoted them. Then 6 months later, I had to get rid of them because they didn't perform. And that was really my fault. You know, in hindsight, I should never have moved that person from what they were doing well to a higher position. So I learned that you have to lead people based on their abilities. So that's the learning I got. But for me, I remember that to this day. I meet that youngster today and I say, you know what, I'm so sorry.
I failed you.
I failed you.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
What keeps you awake? I mean, running this big company with so much promise, what keeps you awake?
You know, it's the fear that we may not realize the full potential that we have. That, you know, maybe I shouldn't be sleeping. I should be out there working. You know, that's, you know, the fear that we because we might not work as hard as we should, and we don't realize exactly what we have a huge opportunity, Trevor. The opportunity to unlock and unravel a new digital life in Zimbabwe. The opportunity to create a Zimbabwe that we're going to be very proud of in a few years from now. That keeps me awake. That's a huge burden on my shoulder because I'm one of the leaders that is supposed to ensure that this happens. And I often ask myself, am I doing enough?
Mm-hmm. But you're an underdog.
Yes.
An underdog has nothing to lose.
Yes, that is true. That is our practical position. But in our hearts and in our minds in NetOne, we're already the winners. We're already leading. We just have to go through the motions to get there. So we don't see ourselves as underdogs.
Lazarus, what are you reading at the moment?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay.
It's an interesting book. It just teaches you about choices we make, whether it be in employment or, you know, most people buy nice cars and they say that I've got a nice asset. It teaches you that that's not an asset. It's not making money for you, spending money on it. So that's not an asset. An asset is something that actually generates money for you. And I think it's quite an important book for all youngsters to read, especially in an environment where we're highly informalized, but yet we're churning out all these graduates that are looking for jobs. They should not be looking for jobs. We need to teach them to create jobs. And that's what this book teaches.
I want you to dwell more on that. Your message to young people trying to get into business, your message to young people trying to choose professions and careers in an environment of this nature. With your experience across the continent, what advice, what message would you have for them?
Well, the first thing is that I think you have to believe in yourself. That's the first thing. You have to listen to that inner voice inside you, because it's not your mother, it's not your father. Bless them, they will guide you. But you must listen to yourself and be confident enough to stand up for what you think will make you happy and you can excel at. That's the first thing. You must be confident and make your choice. Then you must be resolute, because you will fail. And they will tell you, we told you so.
It's guaranteed.
Yes, it's guaranteed you fail. Then they'll tell you, we told you so. But don't be deterred. If it's your journey that you've chosen, you only fail if, when you fall, you stay down. But if you get up, you've not failed. So you have to make the choice first, be confident, then be resolute, continue believing, and keep working hard at what you chose to do. And the graduates today, the youngsters in high school, stop thinking about the job you're going to get. Start thinking about the job you can create. We at NetOne, we're already giving youngsters an opportunity while they're in university already to start learning about how to run a business. We're giving them airtime business that they can run. So we've started now with champions in the universities. We've got champions in probably all the universities now that we are teaching how to run an airtime business. And from that, they can get key skills that can help them to become entrepreneurs going forward. So we're playing our little role, but I see that growing as we partner with other companies, with other professions, such as the accounting profession, to help these youngsters to start learning how to run their own business while they're still at school.
You've described to us what keeps you awake, the fact that you, as you are in bed, you feel like you should be working, which is dangerous. How do you relax, Lazarus? How do you relax? What's your mode of relaxation?
Yeah, well, I swim, and I do mountain climbing. I've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I've just celebrated with my friends that I went up Kilimanjaro with 20 years ago. We just did a 20-year get-together.
Wow.
Last week. I've climbed it twice. I climbed it 10 years later.
Wow.
So I climbed 20 in 1999 and 2009. So I'm going to have a 10-year celebration with my 2009 group. So so that's what I do. You know, I've climbed the highest mountain in Europe.
What highest mountain in Europe? Sorry.
In Europe, yeah, it's called Mount Elbrus. It's between Russia and Georgia. And my objective is to climb the 7 highest mountains, one on each continent. So I've done Africa and Europe now.
And what drives that? Why do you want to climb mountains? People will ask.
I want to challenge myself, you know, and also there's an inner peace that you don't get anywhere else, except maybe when you're diving. I do a bit of diving as well, and you're way under the sea. There's an inner peace you get when you're on the mountain, and in my busy world, and I guess in all our busy worlds, it's so hard to shut out everything. But when you're on this mountain, you can actually, there's no cell phones. It's just you and your thoughts and the challenge at hand.
So you have had experience on the continent. You are saying you're building a world-class company. Would you take NetOne to the continent?
Oh, first of all, that's a shareholder question. But if I was to get that approval, the answer is yes, and we would win.
Fantastic. Lazarus, it's been good having you on in conversation with Trevor, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks, Trevor.
In your journey to turn NetOne into a world-class company. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks for watching. Don't want to miss out on these insightful conversations? Subscribe to our YouTube channel.